All right, welcome everybody to the group call. This is going to be a recorded group call that's going to be a training on how to improve your pantry so you can have more high protein options in your pantry to set you up for a successful protein week ahead. So this is how the call is going to be structured. We're going to be going over a few specifics that I had mentioned we would in the email regarding this group call. And if you have any questions and you're watching the replay, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to address them with you. Okay. So let's get some screen sharing going here. We're going to be doing this screen here. Cool. All right. All right. Let's do it. Cool. Awesome. All right. Welcome to the Peak Performance Pantry. Today, we're going to be going over why protein. We're going to be talking about what Peak Performance Pantry looks like, high protein snacks, as well as how to make your protein fit into your caloric intake, and then some meal preps and tips on how to set yourself up for a successful week ahead nutritionally. All right. So let's look at what that looks like. So we're going to start with, like I mentioned, talking about why protein. So, in terms of protein and what it does, protein is going to be helpful for managing things like muscle growth and maintenance, satiety and hunger management, improve recovery. It's going to boost your metabolism. It's also going to help with hormonal health and overall function. So, protein is essentially a very essential building block for overall general health. So, let's dig into that a little bit more and what that looks like. So, when we talk about muscle growth and maintenance, what we're looking at is the initial what's called your BMR is your basal metabolic rate. So this is going to be like the rate that's going to be relative to just keeping the lights on. So if we think of it like, okay, I know what my budget is for my monthly expenditures, this is going to be the same thing except for our body. So it means that if I was just bedridden and I didn't do anything in a day, no walking, no movement, I had everything brought to me, fully catered day, this is how much it's going to cost me to exist, right? So that means that we're going to require a certain amount of calories just to, again, keep the lights on. So in terms of that, protein is the building block of muscle. Without it, you're not giving your body the raw materials it needs to grow or maintain lean muscle mass. So that's what muscle growth and maintenance is going to cover in terms of just making sure that you're able to actually have the building blocks to be able to do what we're looking to do here in terms of getting leaner, getting stronger, and having a better quality of life and improving bodily functions. So in terms of your satiety and hunger management, protein it helps to keep you full longer. So it takes longer to digest than carbohydrates or fat, meaning that you'll be having less snacks and less cravings and less of staring at the fridge at 11 o'clock at night, wondering what you can put in your mouth before you get to bed. So what we want to keep in mind here is outside of melatonin suppression melatonin suppression and your circadian rhythm, your body temperature, your hunger hormones, ghrelin, all of these things are responsible for actually waking you up in the morning. But there's also another component to what actually wakes people up in the morning, and it's going to be known as your cortisol awakening response. The acronym is CAR. We blunt this response by having a high protein, high fat breakfast while keeping carbohydrates on the lower side for your first meal in the morning. So this is going to be helpful because we know that cortisol is going to be a catabolic hormone, meaning that it's going to impede your ability to build muscle, stay lean, and reduce stress overall. So if we do have high cortisol, it's not going to be favorable for us to have a high carbohydrate breakfast like smashing a croissant or toast and butter first thing in the morning. We want to have something that's going to be high quality animal-based protein, have really high fats, so this way we can maintain that cortisol level, keep our blood sugar regulated, and have a strong start to the day. From there, we're going to talk about improved recovery. So your protein is also going to help in terms of rebuilding your muscle and help to recover from something like a tough work day as well. So it's not just about your muscle in general, but it's also just going to be about how we can mitigate the influence of like a really challenging day for ourselves too. Protein helps with this as well. So it helps you repair your muscle, it helps accelerate recovery, reduce soreness. So this way you can have a similar day to the one that you just had today and continually strive higher and perform harder every day. So, in terms of repair and recovery, after your workouts, your muscles become damaged and have what are called like little micro tears in them. So our body is trying to repair those through a process called muscle protein synthesis. So muscle protein synthesis is initiated when we have at least 30 grams of protein per meal. So the reason why we have that minimal 30 grams of protein per meal is because within the protein itself are what are called amino acids. And these amino acids are going to be important in perpetuating certain physiological functions that are going to have influence on your muscle system and the skeletal muscles' ability to recover from the workouts you did, the hard day you had. All these things are going to be associated with recovery. So there's actually a specific amino acid we're looking for, which is called leucine. So if we can get leucine in our system, that's going to be an adequate amount of it that is exclusive to animal-based protein. It's going to perpetuate a physiological process or a physiological pathway rather called the mTOR pathway. You can think of this mTOR pathway as like a foreman on a construction site. So say you roll into a construction site, there's all these laborers who are going to do all these things you're asking them to do. There's all these raw materials that are hanging around and nobody's doing anything. And that's because mTOR or the foreman hasn't directed anybody as to what it is they're looking to do for the day. So the foreman will tell the carpenters, hey, carpenters, get the plywood, start making forms, where you got to get the iron workers in here to put down the rebar. So this way we can get ready to get the concrete workers in here to pour concrete and then remove the forms. So this way we have our building or our muscle, right? So that's what mTOR is responsible for. It's putting that amino acid to work, or those amino acids rather, to work so you can build more muscle and recover from your workouts. In terms of boosted metabolism, right? So digesting protein burns more calories than carbohydrates or fat. This process is known as the thermic effect of food. In other words, your body has to work harder to process steak, chicken, fish, seafood, which means a slight metabolic boost. So just to help clarify the word metabolism, because I feel like it's very much so thrown around and it's not always clear what exactly that is to a lot of people. So your metabolism is the chemical reactions in the body cell that change food into energy. So what the currency is in your body or how much currency you need in your body to change food into energy, meaning that your metabolism is going to be responsible for converting that calorie into a particular molecule that's going to allow you to have a certain function. So, for example, your metabolism is going to be predicated on what I mentioned earlier in terms of your basal metabolic rate. So, your metabolism increases the more muscle you have, or just the more mass you have in general. So, the heavier you are, the higher your basal metabolic rate is going to be, the more it's going to cost you to keep the lights on in a day. Around 20% to 30% of the calories in protein are burned during digestion, where carbs and fats are around 5 to 10%, and fats are going to be about 0 to 3% in terms of how much is going to be burned of that particular macronutrient to have it be digested. So fat is going to be the easiest one to burn in terms of how much currency of itself it's going to take to be able to be metabolized into your system. Carbohydrates are going to be a little bit less than, or a little bit more than that, rather. And then protein is going to be the most. This is the most challenging to break down. It's going to be the hardest for your body to break down. So if we have that, it's going to actually cost us less to process that food versus just having something like carbs and fats, which are going to be easier to digest, leaving us hungry in a few hours if we only have carbohydrates and fat in our diet. In terms of your metabolism as well, protein is also going to help your hormone production like GLP-1. You can think of this like Ozempic. So the same drugs that are in the news quite frequently right now are actually perpetuated in our own system intrinsically by something like protein. So this is going to be helpful to reduce our hunger levels. So this way we can manage our hunger symptoms a lot better as well. Lastly, hormone health and overall function. So, from supporting hormones to enzymes, protein is involved in virtually every function of the body. You shortchange yourself on it, and you'll feel it, not just in the gym, but in your energy, focus, and overall health as well. So, hormones are made up of amino acids, things like insulin, growth hormone, appetite regulating hormones like ghrelin and leptin are made of amino acids. Amino acids in protein also help to promote and improve insulin sensitivity when paired with resistance training. So, to give a bit more clarity around that, insulin sensitivity, a good analogy to think of insulin sensitivity would be if you had a key that would go to the gas cap of your car. If you're not very insulin sensitive, the key to that gas cap is going to be either rusted or the lock on the actual gas cap is going to be really challenging to get into. So what you could imagine is that the gas that you're looking to fuel your body with is going to be glucose. So if you're not super insulin sensitive, then it's going to be really challenging for your body to take in energy, to be able to output energy. And when that happens, the car either doesn't run at all or doesn't run super well. So what you want to keep in mind is that when we pair high protein diet with resistance training, it makes that key and that lock operate super smooth. Insulin's responsible for regulating your blood sugar and maintaining overall metabolic health. So this is best maintained, your blood sugar, when we have an adequate breakfast at the start of our day. If we don't have an adequate breakfast at the start of our day, our hunger hormones start to trend upward over time. It makes it very challenging to then have those hunger hormones come back down if we're kind of starting the day behind the eight ball. So if we can get a large part of our protein requirement in the earlier part of our day, the less likely you're going to have these hunger hormones increased and be feeling unsatiated by the end of your day. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we were staring at the fridge at 11 o'clock at night. Protein also helps to improve thyroid function and key hormones like T3 and T4. Those are hormones that regulate caloric burn at rest and how your body converts food into energy and controls your body temperature, heart rate, blood pressure, regulates protein synthesis and muscle function, mood and cognition, while also regulating digestion and gut health. Essentially, your protein intake is also going to help manage your thyroid function. So this way you can regulate all the things that are associated with a healthy thyroid. So when we look at something like hypothyroidism, where your thyroid hormones are too low, you might start to experience things like a slow metabolism, weight gain, fatigue, be intolerant to things like cold. You might be, experiencing bouts of depression and a really slowed heart rate. This can be caused by a few other things as well. So this is outside of the scope of this presentation, but this is going to be relative to making sure that, again, you're providing the building blocks associated to set yourself up for success by having an adequate protein intake so that your thyroid and other organs in your body are going to be able to perform their functions optimally. Just to touch on hyperthyroidism as well. Hyperthyroidism leads to a fast thyroid or having too high of thyroid hormones, which can also lead to weight loss, rapid heart rate, intolerance to things like heat, anxiety, and muscle weakness. So you got to try to find an optimal range with this kind of stuff. Again, speak to your healthcare clinician or your doctor about potentially looking for things like blood tests to manage your thyroid and making sure that that's in check as well. This could also be something that could be managed through nutrition as well, but sometimes medication may need to be included into the intervention as well. So this way you can be put in an optimal position to succeed and get to your goals. So let's talk about what a peak performance pantry looks like. Let's do this. Too many P's. So a peak performance pantry is going to be filled with high animal protein based items. So we know that animal protein is superior to plant protein, but this doesn't mean that plant protein is just like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We still want to use that to our advantage. I think there's a uh, I think that there's often the notion that, okay, if it's not animal protein, then I don't want it at all. I think that there's an opportunity to create a recipe with certain items that are going to be as optimal as we can get them. So this way we can integrate as much of a complete amino acid profile to help get us to a place where we're going to be optimal. So as I mentioned earlier, plant-based proteins are going to be about half the value of an animal-based protein, but doesn't mean that it's going to be completely useless. So a complete amino acid profile with plant protein usually misses the amino acid that's known as leucine. We mentioned this earlier when it comes to muscle protein synthesis and the importance of that. So the majority of the protein in plant protein actually hangs out in the fiber, which we actually aren't able to digest. That's why it makes it really challenging. And generally, you have to get twice the volume of that plant protein to get an adequate amount of protein through that particular source. So the animal-based protein is going to be also easier to digest and also have a better biological value. So a biological value, the acronym is BV, is how well the body can utilize a protein from the source it's coming from. So if you look at something like eggs and whey protein, for example, those are going to be the highest in terms of the biological value of those animal-based proteins. Eggs have a score of 100, whey protein has a score of 104, where plant protein from plants specifically has a score of about 74, while grains has a score of about 64. So much less influential in terms of its ability to be absorbed and utilized by the body in a optimal way to help recovery and all the things I had mentioned earlier around what protein does for you. There's also a greater anabolic effect in terms of muscle protein synthesis, so being able to build more muscle with more animal protein. And you also need less volume to get the 30 grams of protein that we had mentioned earlier. So this way you can promote the muscle protein synthesis that's going to help build more muscle. So animal-based protein, again, 30 grams is going to be enough to cause the physiological adaptations and responses that are going to be associated with muscle building. While with plant protein, it's not quite the same. You're going to have almost twice the amount, or depending on where it's coming from, to get the same response. Animal-based protein is also going to have additional nutrients like iron. It's going to have things like vitamin B12, which is going to be important for your immune system, or sorry, for your neurological system. It's also going to have zinc that's associated with them, which is important for your immune system, and also omega-3s for brain health and overall the for your brain health, but also for your things like your arteries, your veins, and for your recovery as well, and the health of the cells in your body. Doesn't mean that we don't count plant protein towards our total plant or protein intake rather, but we do look at those values again as about half the value that they're listed at. Cool. So let's go over some examples of what some animal proteins look like. So you have your poultry, which is chicken, duck, quail. You have your beef and veal, which is sirloin steak, filet mignon. You have lean ground beef. You can even get some veal cutlets in there. If you're looking at pork, we're thinking pork tenderloin, which is the highest protein per gram with the minimal fat content that you can get. There's ham, ground pork, fish and seafood. So you got salmon, tuna, shrimp, dairy products, cheese, Greek yogurt, skim milk. You're going to want to look for more of the lower fat options with this stuff. I would advise against no fat. You are going to want some fat. There is value to it, but we don't want to have the full fat options if we're trying to save on caloric intake. Things like eggs and egg products, whole eggs, egg whites, game meats like venison, bison, elk, rabbit, organ meats like liver, kidneys, heart, and tripe, protein powders and supplements like whey protein, casein, egg white protein if you are intolerant or sensitive to things like dairy, and collagen protein, keeping in mind that collagen protein isn't necessarily the greatest when it comes to muscle building properties or recovery, but it is good for your skin and for your joints. So it's not completely useless. However, I would advise not necessarily trying to get all of your protein from exclusively animal, again, as I mentioned earlier, but keeping in mind that the collagen protein is not necessarily going to have what it is you're looking for that the other sources are going to have for you, keeping in mind that these are supplements. So they're supplemental. We don't want to think of these as the main source of our protein intake. So let's next talk about plant protein. So when we're looking at plant protein, again, you know how I feel about it, but let's look at what things we can use that are higher on the protein scale so we can get the most out of them. So we're looking at things like grains and seeds. We're thinking of oats, quinoa, hemp seeds, chia seeds. We're also thinking of things like legumes and beans, so lentils, chickpeas, black beans, and navy beans. Nuts and nut butter, so almond butter, pistachios, almonds, walnuts. Protein-rich veggies like peas, spinach, broccoli, asparagus. High protein plant-based mix-ins like nutritional yeast and spirulina powder. So in terms of spirulina powder, that's going to have a decent amount of protein. I think it's 8 grams per 2 tablespoons. So call it 4. If you are looking for things that are grain-based, you can get pasta that is made with spirulina powder or flour rather. So this way you can actually get some protein content out of that as well while still enjoying the foods you love. Okay. Up next, let's talk about some high protein snack options. So snack options include things like hard-boiled eggs or soft-boiled, however you want to take your eggs, protein bars, low sugar ones, of course, because we want to make sure that we're not necessarily putting ourselves in a position where we're just gaining sugar from external sources. Uh, I am a advocate for things like RX bars. They're minimal in terms of their ingredients, but at the same time, if it's going to mean that you're not going to have any protein at all and forego eating anything, then get the option that is available to you. There's beef jerky you can get minimally processed and minimally preservative based deli meats, things like chicken breast, turkey breast, like prosciutto. That's one too. Cheese sticks and snacks, Greek yogurt cups, protein shakes, just straight up protein shakes with water, shrimp. So eight shrimp has 20 grams of protein, and I think it's like 120 calories. It's relatively low. Egg bites from something like Starbucks or somewhere like Starbucks, rather. Protein chips like Quest chips are going to have about 20 grams of protein per bag for about, I think they're about $4 if you go to something like a Metro, which is a pretty awesome dollar per gram, and they taste pretty great too. You can also get some high protein cereal and granola as well. If you put some skim milk in that, that's actually a pretty awesome snack when it comes to the calorie per gram ratio per protein. Cool. So let's talk about how to make your protein fit your caloric goals. So, in terms of your caloric goals, what I would like people to keep in mind is you're going to want to try to aim for something like at least 7 to 10 grams per 100 calories that you're intaking to get into an optimal place. So, we want to aim for anywhere from zero point 0.8 to 1 gram per body pound of body weight when it comes to your protein intake daily. This is going to be the minimum we're going to want to ingest. So this way we can maintain the muscle mass we have while being in a caloric deficit if your goal is fat loss. Okay. So what I want to do was go through sort of what my day looks like whenever I'm eating. So this is going to be my day. So breakfast for me, we'll add some food. This is using my Fitness Pal. If you're not familiar with it, this is what I encourage most of you to use. So I usually have in the morning soft boiled eggs. This morning was a little bit different actually. So here's what I did. I did 3 eggs. So let's go eggs. Okay, one large. Serving is 3. Cool. At the food diary. I also had a cup of spinach. I essentially made what I make? Basically ricotta, spinach, eggs in the morning. So let's put that all together. It's a cup of that. Then we added in some ricotta. It's a quarter cup of that. And then we also added some cheddar cheese. It's a quarter cup of that. Let's do this. Cheddar cheese, 1 ounce. Change that to 1 cup shredded, and we'll go 0.25. Add to food diary for breakfast. Cool. So that puts me at 32 grams of protein. Sweet. Hit the goal. We're in a good spot. Calories 430. Awesome. After I had my breakfast, I also had some oats. So we did half a cup of oats, oatmeal, regular oat, no, not a package. Oatmeal dry. We had half a cup. Add that to the food diary. Then we had Greek yogurt, plain non-fat. I had not 1 cup, I had 170 grams. That's food diary. We also had a scoop of protein in there. What did I put? Was it vanilla? That's okay. Let's go vanilla. Grass-fed whey. Perfect. Okay, cool. One scoop. Great. So, so far, I'm into my day. I've got, oh, wait, no, not 1,700 grams. Take that out. Change that to grams. 170 grams. Cool. So far, between my breakfast and my snacks, I'm at 802 calories and 78 grams of protein. Okay. So I know later that I'm actually going out for dinner with a friend and I'm going to be having pizza. I'm probably going to smash about a half a pizza. So what I could do technically is either use today as a potential maintenance day, or I could try to squeeze into my calories as close as I can be. Because if you're not exactly in your caloric range that I've suggested to you, it just means that you're in a smaller deficit before you get to your maintenance calories. So say my maintenance calories. So let's actually do this together. Let's pull this up. So my maintenance calories, my goal is to get down to 155 pounds, let's say. So we're going to multiply that by 14 minus 500. So my range for caloric intake is going to be anywhere from 1570 to 1770 calories in a day. Okay. So that means that at 155 pounds at zero point 0.8, my minimum protein intake is 124 grams of protein I'm looking to get in a day. My maintenance calories is 155 pounds times 14. So I can go as high as 2170 or even a little bit higher than that, to be honest. And I'd totally be okay in terms of not seeing the scale move up. So I know, like I mentioned, I'm going to be having a probably about a half a pizza from Pizza Libretto. So let's see if that's in here. Sick. Okay, it's in there. Uh, what am I going to have? Yeah, I'll probably have a pepperoni slice. What's that got going on? One quarter pepperoni. One fourth. Let's go with two one fourths. That'd be half a pizza. Yeah, so that's 640 calories. Cool. So now that I know I'm at 1,442 calories, right? Here's what I can do. Now that I've put in ahead of what I'm trying to figure out for the day, I can work backwards from there and use the remaining calories to figure out the rest of what I can have for my lunch and for anything else I want to have during the day. So in terms of my protein intake, right, we set at 155.8. I got to get to at least 124. So 124 minus 80. I got to find another 44 grams of protein, but I also have to stay under 1770 minus 1442. Under 328 calories. Good luck. Let's see how this goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw another scoop of protein in here, ATP, and I'm actually going to have that before I go out to dinner tonight with my friend. So this way I don't have more than the pizza that I'm claiming I'm going to have. Cool. So now we're at 103 grams of protein. 1770 minus 1561. So 209 grams of 209 calories left I have to work with for today. Okay. So for lunch, I have a few lower calorie, higher protein options that I usually go with. So I'll show you one of them. Let's go with add food. Let's go to meals. Okay, tuna and crackers. Cool. Check. So what that is 7 ounces of tuna from an Unico canned tuna. That's going to be 260 calories. I have 30 grams of Breton crackers, 129 calories, and I put this antipasto, almost like a cured vegetable, not cured vegetables, but they're vegetables that are in olive oil. I don't add the olive oil. I drain the olive oil and I use this instead of something like mayo or something that's going to be higher calorie to give it like a garnish with the tuna. So that's going to be 419 calories. So that's going to take me to 138 grams of protein. So we tick the box in terms of my protein goals. but 1980 in terms of my caloric intake. So we said that my maintenance calories is going to be around 21-ish 100 calories. So I could consider this either a maintenance day, or what I could do is reduce this tuna intake to half of that, or I could also have one piece of pizza, but we all know that that's not going to happen. So the reality of the situation here is I'm going to actually increase my pizza intake and take that up to that 2,300 calorie mark. And it's going to take me up to 140 grams of protein and not really be upset about it. So when we look at the total caloric intake more across the week, that's what we need to be cognizant of. So if I know that if I have more calories on one particular day, I can have a little bit less further in the week and look at the entire week more so to the individual day as to whether or not I am successfully in a caloric deficit for the week. Cool. If there are any questions about that or any questions about how to go about navigating through your day, meal wise, please feel free to message me. Happy to talk about it and help you work through this. Let's go back to the presentation. Okay, cool. So, in terms of how to meal prep and get different options in there for yourself as well, there are some meal prep tips here. So things like scheduling different days for things like recipe collection, grocery shopping, cooking, and also batch cooking. So this way you can cook one or two, maybe even 3 days of the week instead of every day of the week. If you're not a fan of leftovers, that's cool, but just know that you're gonna have to use utensils or appliances like slow cookers, maybe your oven if you have a smoker, something of that nature. So this way you can cook, but kind of in a hands-off way to save you some time and get you doing the other things that are important to you. So in terms of recipe collection, you might want to just be passively doing this throughout the week, but I would highly recommend, scheduling, okay, this night I'm going to be on social media for purposes of trying to find some new recipes. If you're not looking at my page, maybe there's another page you like or some things you want to try. They're going to be on the higher protein side of things. So this way, again, you can set yourself up for success in terms of keeping your caloric number down while keeping your protein content high. If you grocery shop on the same day you cook, I find personally that it's extremely tedious and challenging to do all those things all in one day because grocery shopping, you're either grocery shopping in multiple locations or you're trying to find where there are better deals. It may just be easier to have that done on a separate day that's consistently done on that day. It's also much easier to go grocery shopping once you know what you want to buy. So if you go in reverse order and grocery shop and then find your recipes you want to make, you might end up going back to the grocery store because you realized, oh no, I forgot that I needed X, Y, and Z. So if you go recipes first, then groceries second, then it's easier for you to then obviously cook because now you have everything that you need to cook from the recipes that you collected. A really good tip that a friend of mine uses in his household is on Monday and Tuesday, he cooks twice as much as he needs to. This way, Monday and Tuesday dinner is taken care of. And then on Wednesday, he has takeout with his family. Thursday and Friday, he has leftovers from Monday and Tuesday. Saturday, he has takeout. And Sunday, either they have leftovers or they cook for that one particular day. So they're really only cooking 2 to 3 times a week. And it just makes things a lot easier when you batch cook this way, just so you're not spending so much time in the kitchen or just monitoring food and, wondering to yourself, what are we going to eat? We already know what we're going to eat. When you have the protein set out in your menu for the week, it makes it much easier to build meals around that. So if I'm going to have ground beef, I can generally season ground beef with salt, pepper, etc. From there, you can use that in multiple recipes, whether you're going to do tacos on Tuesday, whether you want to make a chili with it. There's so much more versatility to that. It's the same with something like steak, for example, or chicken. Chicken, you can make a chicken salad. You can add it on top of a salad. You can make wraps. You can use the same thing with pork. There's so many more options if you just have the protein already cooked ahead of time. So protein takes the most time to prep generally. It's the thing that requires definitely requires the most attention in terms of making sure that it's cooked properly. So if we can get that all batch cooked in over a couple days, it makes it much easier to manage and navigate being set up for success. So this way you can have high protein meals throughout your week. If you do have any questions, please feel free to message me. Thank you for taking the time to watch this training on how to get a high protein peak performance pantry. I'm going to be sending out a PDF to everybody just to give you some breakdowns on meal recipes, meal recipe ideas, some of the information reviewed in the slideshow today. And if you do have any questions, like I mentioned, please feel free to reach out. Be happy to see you and see your questions come up. Thanks so much.